Welcome back to Le Podcast de Philippe, and today we're diving deep into a fascinating piece of recent history with, I think, some big implications for global politics.
Sounds interesting.
So picture this. Former Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien decides to use his 91st birthday to write a very pointed open letter.
Okay.
Not to like a friend or a colleague, but to Donald Trump.
Oh, wow.
And this isn't just any birthday message. It's a bold critique of Trump's policies,
I see.
a strong defense of Canadian values,
Okay.
and even a call to action for world leaders.
Interesting.
So today we're going to unpack some of the key takeaways from Chrétien's letter and explore why it's resonating with so many people even years later.
Well, I think this letter really captures the essence of what we're all about here on the podcast of Philippe, going beyond the headlines
Right.
to understand the deeper currents shaping our world.
Absolutely.
And Chrétien's letter, it does exactly that. It's
Yeah.
like a masterclass in combining personal reflection, historical perspective,
Yeah.
and a call to action.
It really is. And he doesn't pull any punches.
No, he doesn't.
He basically tells Trump that Canadians would never want to be part of the U.S.
Wow.
And he uses this blunt, almost grandfatherly tone,
Yeah.
but it's clearly a wake-up call.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he uses his own experience in Canada's history to really make his point. He
right.
reminds Trump that Canada has always been a strong, independent nation,
Right.
willing to stand up for its values,
Yeah.
even when it meant disagreeing with its powerful neighbor to the south. He brings up Canada's involvement in both world wars way before the U.S. even entered the picture,
Right.
and their refusal to join the Iraq War.
Yeah.
It's a subtle but powerful way of saying we've always charted our own course,
Yeah.
and we're not about to change that now.
Exactly. And it's not just about defending Canada's past, though.
Right.
Chrétien is also laying out a vision for Canada's future.
Okay.
He argues that Canada needs to be more assertive on the world stage,
Interesting.
not just reacting to U.S. pressure, but actively shaping the global agenda.
Mhm.
He even calls out issues like gun control, where Canada has taken a very different approach than the U.S.,
Okay.
and Arctic sovereignty,
Oh, right.
where he sees the need for Canada to be more proactive in protecting its interests.
Okay, so it's not just about taking a stand against something, it's about standing for something.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Chrétien is articulating a vision of a world where nations cooperate to address common challenges,
Right.
where diplomacy and dialogue prevail over threats and intimidation.
Absolutely.
It's remarkable how he kind of uses this birthday message as a platform to not just address a domestic audience, but also reach out to a global one.
Yeah, he directly calls for international collaboration with other nations who, feel targeted by Trump's America First policies.
Right. It's a recognition that the challenges posed by Trump extend far beyond Canada's borders.
Yeah, a call for a united front against, rising tide of nationalism and protectionism.
And it's interesting how he contrasts Canadian values with what he sees as that, more aggressive, individualistic ethos of the Trump administration.
Right.
He highlights Canada's commitment to things like compassion and tolerance and inclusivity.
Yeah.
And he backs it up with concrete examples like Canada's social safety net and stricter gun control laws.
Yeah, it's subtle but really effective.
Right. He's not explicitly attacking the U.S.,
Right.
but he is drawing a very clear line in the sand, defining what Canada stands for and what it won't.
And it's not just about standing against something, right?
Right.
It's about standing for something.
Exactly.
He's articulating a vision of a world where nations cooperate to address common challenges and where diplomacy and dialogue prevail over threats and intimidation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about.
So do you think this kind of direct public rebuke can actually be effective in today's political climate?
That's a great question.
We're so used to this diplomatic language and behind-the-scenes negotiations. Chrétien seems to be throwing that playbook out.
Well, it's certainly a risky strategy,
Yeah.
but there's something refreshing,
Yeah, I agree.
even inspiring, about a leader who is willing to speak truth to power,
Yeah.
even if it might ruffle some feathers.
It seems like he's tapping into this, deep well of frustration with the current state of global politics.
I think you're right.
People are tired of the polarization, the gridlock, the feeling that their voices aren't being heard.
And Chrétien, by speaking so frankly and so directly, is offering an alternative.
Yeah.
It shows that it's possible to stand up for your values,
Yeah.
to challenge those in power
Right.
without resorting to, the same kind of divisive rhetoric that's become so common these days.
It's a powerful message, and it really seems to be resonating far beyond Canada.
It is.
People want leaders who are willing to speak their minds, to stand up for what they believe in,
Yes.
and to offer, a positive vision for the future.
Absolutely. And I think Chrétien's letter raises some important questions for us.
Yeah, what are those?
Well, what are the limits of diplomacy in a world that's increasingly divided?
That's a big question.
Can blunt honesty be an effective tool for change?
Another good one.
And perhaps most importantly, what role can each of us play in shaping a more just and equitable world?
Those are questions worth pondering.
They are.
And I think Chrétien's letter provides a really thought-provoking starting point.
I agree.
We're all grappling with these issues in our own way.
Yeah.
And it's really inspiring to see a leader who's not afraid to address them head on.
It's really interesting how he manages to be both critical and respectful at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't shy away from really condemning some of Trump's policies,
Right.
but he also acknowledges him, as a fellow leader and kind of appeals to his sense of responsibility.
It's like he's saying we have these, fundamental disagreements.
Right.
But we can still engage in this civil and constructive dialogue.
Okay.
It's a huge contrast to the often toxic, nature of political discourse that we see today.
Right. It's a good reminder that even when we have, really big differences, we shouldn't just abandon those principles of diplomacy and mutual respect.
Yeah, it's a lesson that I think feels really relevant in our current, polarized world.
And his call for international collaboration, I think that's noteworthy too.
Yeah.
He recognizes that, the challenges from Trump's policies, they're not unique to Canada.
Right.
And he's urging other nations to band together
Mm-hmm.
to present a united front against what he sees as this threat to the global order.
I think this is where his legacy as a statesman really shines through.
Yeah.
He understands that these global problems require global solutions.
Right.
He's not advocating for, isolationism or going it alone, but for collective action and a real commitment to multilateralism.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for our listeners?
Right.
Why should they care about a birthday letter from years ago?
Well, I think Chrétien's letter is a powerful reminder that even with these seemingly, impossible challenges, individuals can still make a difference.
I agree.
He shows that speaking truth to power, standing up for your values,
Yeah.
and advocating for a better world, those aren't just abstract ideals,
Yeah.
but things that we can actually do.
It's a message that really resonates with people, I think.
Yeah.
Especially for those who feel disillusioned or disempowered by today's political climate.
I agree.
Chrétien's letter, it's a call to action, an invitation to engage, and a reminder that our voices really do matter.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about looking back at a historical document. It's about, exploring those timeless questions of leadership and courage
Yeah.
and the power of just one voice to inspire change.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Jean Chrétien's remarkable letter.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
We hope it sparked some reflection for you. And maybe even, a little bit of hope.
Absolutely.
Remember, even something like a birthday message.
Right.
It can carry a powerful message
Yeah.
and inspire action.
It really can.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.